Hey, welcome to a new production insight. This time I'd like to take you through an approach of bass design. Some people requested some more insight on how I treat things, and I wanted to share this way of how I sometimes works on bass sound design. And it is actually nothing too magic here, and my approach is to work with pretty much simple waveforms, but use distortion later on to create the full sound, the overtoned sound of a bass that kind of makes it warm and gives it that music. Because in the mid-range there is the music, and that's the area you kind of want to have interesting. So before I'll talk more about it, I'll just let it play. It's a session I prepared. It's just drums, percussion, and the bass riff. And I'm just gonna let it play with the drums first, and then we focus on the bass. I think it's got all it needs. It's just drums, some perks, and bass, and it kind of sounds full. And that's always the sound I'm looking for these days, to not go over the board with too many channels and too crazy sound design, even though that design of that sound is was quite of a, not a mission, but quite some tweaking. So I'll take you through this. I'm gonna mute all those other channels, and we're just gonna focus on the bass. All right, so what I want to do is I want to play you what Theorem does, and without any processing on top. Just gonna mute the whole channel, because when I open this might look confusing, and it still might even be a bit confusing for me as well. But step by step it kind of made sense. But we get to this later. So the Theorem, what it does actually here, it is just sine waves. And that's the wrong one. We're gonna get to that one later. That's the one I'm talking about. It's the main bass. Just gonna mute this one for now. As you hear, just simple sine waves, but they follow a modulation over time. I'm just gonna mute those. That's just oscillator 1, A. It's just a fundamental sub, and all it does, the amp envelope just gets a little less loud over time. And then I felt like, okay, this needs more overtone, and I didn't want the overtone to play the same times, so I added harmonic series. I think this is position 4, but you could even alter that later on. And I just gonna let that volume be modulated by, didn't went for envelope here, but for LFO1. So as you see, this comes in over time and then vanishes again. This is like just the standard fundamental sine, and then I added the harmonics on top, and I added just a little impact noise, because I like when noise goes into distortion as well, kind of glues together nice. So, and that's really about it. No filter, no effects, just the modulation we talked about. Very simple stuff. And I think I like that approach, because you don't have to go too crazy here and just add the characteristics later on by adding distortions. And for me, the approach here is to not go over the board. Like, don't add shitloads of distortion in terms of mix. Don't go too aggressive. Just use a little of something that you feels good to the sound. So I'm gonna take you through those distortions, or like those processing steps, before I go to this overtone addition of the bass, which I added later on. So first distortion. You see, if I unmute it, you already hear what it does. And this one just adds a little more wooden sonorous character for distortion, and it's just a little wet, not too much. And then next one was another distortion unit. Again, this one just does a little, like 10% of saturation, you know, it doesn't do a lot, but it adds up in the end, because if you use all those different distortions, the phases will kind of change. And I always judge by ear, and if it feels good to me, then I'm like, okay, cool, I move on from here. Also, Saturn mix very little, but adds up, you know, you get a richer content, harmonic content, than wave shaping, which is probably the most essential way of saturation or distortion for me. This makes it like all come alive in terms of low end. Camel Fat, I think that was again just a little tube, yeah, just a small percentage of tube, some more distortion, and then I added it after this, all this, the row of distortion. I added some EQ to kind of clean the mid-range area up, because that clutters up if you use distortion, of course. So I always cleaned it up, and it's more of a smiley kind of EQing. And then added some more trash to it. Again, very little amount. I think here, yeah, just a little wet. And then I felt like, okay, this is a clean signal now, and I added this later on because it's some more side information. Some low mid sides, and all I did use was, like, I think a chorus, yeah, serum fixed chorus, because I like how that chorus sounds. It folds really nice, and yeah, I just used that as a side addition, and then I went on and yeah, added some noise. That's an interesting part, because I didn't really have a lot of noise in the serum, because I felt it was doing too much because of the distortion. So I added some noise, some clean noise later on by erosion, and I did modulate the frequency by an LFO tool here, but just for 1%, you know, just a little to be not as static, because I like when things is moving and on a high rate, so you have a bit more of movement, of course, and I can switch this on and off. Here you go, polish the things up, then more cleaning up of the sound with a FET filter, multiband, some more EQing, some clipping, just controls the signal. Then I had a side there to avoid potential noises that come up after the sequence has been played. But I think there weren't any. So then some more EQing, and at the end some limiting. That's really about it. But as you see, from a simple sine wave programming, this is gonna turn into a nice big bass lead sound. And I felt like this needs a little more overtone over time. So I added this another instance of serum, which I think just has, like, I use a sine and noise. Yeah, I'm just gonna add this. All it does is, like, I just use this one and have it modulated over time as well, so it comes in same kind of style as the other overtone harmonic. And I'm just gonna add this. Here you go. You know, this screeching sound coming in. Could even change the pitch. So it's not that EDM-y. So that's gonna make it even more interesting, you know. And I think I did, to get this movement in, I also modulated the volume of that channel just slightly, so it has more of a movement. And that's really about it. Simple sine wave modulations, and just add the right amount of distortion and control, and you're there. And this is, I think, same processing, just a different serum patch. It's more of a steady bass sine wave build. Yeah. As you see, just some noise. Again, just sine waves. This one has a little filtering, but that's about it. And yeah, and together with everything, it glues nicely. Here you go. I hope you enjoyed this. Big up again for being my patron. I really appreciate it. And I'm working on more stuff for the coming weeks. And I talk to you guys soon. Be safe, stay healthy. Bye bye.